The Enclosure Arpeggio combo is the name I'm giving to this pretty cool trick that we can use to extend our lines. I'm going to show you a Bill Evans line where he uses this, and this is something that he does a lot. And then we'll go over some ways that we can implement this into our own playing. So first we'll go over the lick, we'll analyse it, and then we'll go over a variation of that lick, we'll analyse that, and then finally we'll go into some practice. We'll practice both of these lines in a few different keys. And before we start, there's a PDF for this video. It's yours to keep, so you can practice this stuff in all 12 keys. It's in the description. It takes like 2 minutes to get. So much great stuff going on in this lick. I'll play it for you. The part that I'm interested in is what happens in two places. The first is just after this shape. Now, first of all, what is this shape? So this first chord is an A flat minor. So this shape that Bill's using is kind of like an arpeggio from the third, but he's leaving out a note. He's leaving out the seventh. And then this is the same thing, so the next chord is G minor. This shape is kind of like an 11 shape, and he's doing the same thing, he's leaving out the 7. So he's sort of moving this shape around, but we can think of this as an arpeggio. He's going up this arpeggio, but then see how the top note also becomes the upper neighbour of this enclosure. So it's kind of combining the two things and running this arpeggio into an enclosure. And the bit that he does after that is the most important, because so he runs this, but then from this B flat, we're still in G minor, we're on the third of G minor. He runs it into this arpeggio. And he does it one more time at the top here. He does this next, and notice that the top note here becomes the note that's targeted in the enclosure. So down here, the top note formed the upper neighbour of the enclosure. Here, the top note forms the target note of that enclosure. So just a different variation to keep in mind. This second lick, I'll play it with the root motion so you can hear. It's over a 2-5-1 in E flat. See what he does here. So he comes up this arpeggio. It's actually kind of a similar shape to this first one. It's got the 11, but he comes up this, and then again notice that the top note forms part of the enclosure, except it's not an enclosure this time, it's a chromatic approach. He could have just as easily gone. So see what I did there? Instead of going like this, I went like this. I did an enclosure. But again, that's another variation that you can keep in mind. It's just another way of approaching a chord tone with chromatic notes. So he just does that. So then it's the same as the last lick. He comes to this third, and then again, the top note of this arpeggio becomes an upper neighbour in the enclosure of the sharp 11. So remember, it's going to the dominant, the B flat dominant. He hits that sharp 11. So sharp 11 is this sort of sound. He hits that sharp 11 and then just comes down the half-odd diminished scale. Okay, now we're going to practice these, get them under our fingers. We'll do them in 3 keys. Okay, let's check these out in time with a metronome. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. in C major. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now A major. Alright, let's check out lick 2 now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, your turn. Okay, now in A major. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do an octave up. Try that again. practice those in all 12 keys, really get them under your fingers, and then when you're comfortable, try coming up with a few of your own licks. There's lots to experiment with. I'll give you one thing to try out that I didn't go over today. In all these licks, when we enclose a chord tone and go up the arpeggio, we go up like this, sort of linearly in one direction. Maybe experiment changing directions, so like that. And all I'm doing is taking these chord tones and playing them down an octave, changing direction. So we could do this.